So it's sort of a race against time. Do Trump and Musk succeed in bending the US system to their will? Or do the American people start to feel the effects of that breaking of the system,
Yeah.
especially the economic effects on a day-to-day basis?
Now, President Trump has hinted he might be looking at a third term in office, something which is specifically barred by the US Constitution. Speaking to NBC News yesterday, the US president insisted he wasn't joking about seeking another 4 years, and he said there are methods for doing so. But how could he do it? Scott Lucas is a professor of American Studies at the University of Birmingham and joins us on the line. Good morning.
Very good morning to you, Kate.
Now, Donald Trump says he isn't joking, so we should probably take it seriously. I mean, what is he actually talking about here?
Yes, first of all, we should take it seriously. This may be an attempt to distract from a very bad week of news for the Trump administration, serious breaches of national security, signs of economic downturn, Elon Musk continued war of destruction on the US government. But Trump would like to be president for life. He has said that on numerous occasions. But here's the newsflash. He can't be. So let's just knock this on the head. To get a third term in office, he would have to amend the Constitution. The 22nd Amendment of the Constitution says that someone can only be elected to 2 terms in office, whether consecutive or non-consecutive. Now, to get a constitutional amendment, you would have to have a 2/3 majority in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Now, the Republicans have only small majorities in both of those chambers. But even assuming that you could get a constitutional amendment to allow a third term, you then have to have ratification by 3/4 of the American states. That's 38 of 50 states. And the Democrats control more than 12 states. In other words, ratification would almost certainly not occur. And even if it did occur, it would take years. In other words, Donald Trump would be well out of the White House before he would be enabled by an amendment to run for a third term. And that's why you have these wild plans that circulated on social media after he spoke, which is, for example, that J.D. Vance, the current vice president, he could run for president in 2028. And as soon as he was elected, because of course he would be elected, because who would vote against Vance and Trump, then he would hand over the keys to the White House to Donald Trump.
And is that not possible? Because that does seem to be what he's hinting at here, as opposed to a constitutional change.
Well, I mean, you'd have to get that past the American people. I mean, and let's not underestimate Donald Trump. He has 1, 2 terms in office. But would the American people actually break with what is a deeply held idea in American culture, that we don't have a king, we don't have a monarch, we don't have presidents for life, to support him for a third term? Perhaps more importantly, would J.D. Vance agree to this? J.D. Vance wants to be president himself, and I don't think once he got his foot inside the Oval Office that Donald Trump might be able to wedge his fingernails away from the resolute desk in the middle of it.
Is there a world here where J.D. Vance does run, and Donald Trump obviously doesn't change the Constitution, but that J.D. Vance gives Donald Trump some kind of, former editor type role, as you would sometimes see on a newspaper, like a role in which he could still have a public say and be part of the team, but not have any real power?
Well, I think the key here is not that Donald Trump would be, as it were, the shadow behind the president with no power. I think the idea is that Donald Trump would be out in the limelight as the person with the real power. And I think if we want to talk about the significance of what Trump is saying, he's saying, even if I'm not the president, I should be the guy who calls the shots. I should be the guy who effectively is in charge. Now, how would he manage to do that if someone else was president?
Well, that's what some people...
was J.D. Vance or another Republican.
I mean, that's what some people suggest is what's going on with Elon Musk, figures like Elon Musk, that Elon Musk is driving a lot of Donald Trump's policy by virtue of the fact that he has the president's ear.
Yeah, and I think that what you're talking about here is the threat that we've talked about, which goes beyond whether or not Donald Trump runs for a third term, which is whether Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Trump's allies can break the U.S. system.
And is that possible?
What is going on right now is the attempt to break the agencies. Oh, sure. I mean, we're seeing the breaking of agencies in real time right now. I mean, we've seen the dissolution of agencies like the U.S. Agency for International Development, the Department of Education. We've seen the purging of thousands of people simply because they're doing their jobs. We're seeing the attempt to effectively make people carry out a loyalty oath to Donald Trump to keep their positions. So there's a lot of destruction which is being waged on the U.S. system, and the threat is that this could be long lasting. But the other side of the equation is this, that you're already seeing the effects of that damage. In particular, you're seeing the signs of the economic downturn with a sharp drop in consumer confidence, business confidence, with inflation starting to tick upwards, with tariffs likely to cause further problems this week. So it's sort of a race against time. Do Trump and Musk succeed in bending the U.S. system to their will? Or do the American people start to feel the effects of that breaking of the system, especially the economic effects on a day-to-day basis,
And that's
start to turn against the administration?
Yeah, and that's a much bigger political question, isn't it? Professor Scott Lucas, Professor of American Studies at the University of Birmingham, thanks for your time on the programme.
The flip side
Thank you both so much.
The flip side of that argument, actually, Kate, is what if what they are doing is popular? I know the polls don't seem to be so massively coming out in favour of what he's doing, but if over the next 4 years what he does is popular in terms of removing the scale of the state, then what's possible? Then what is actually possible for him to do with the voice of the people? I do think the banter option in all of this is J.D. Vance to promise Donald Trump to give him power and then become the president and say, no, I didn't really mean it. And
you mean like kind of, OK, Grandpa?
Yeah, you just sort of cast him out and say, no, I didn't mean it at all. What are you going to do about it? I'm now the most powerful man in the world and you can do nothing about it.
Yeah, I think it's a question, it's a political question, isn't it? It's one about how the American people feel after this second Trump term, but it's also about how American people feel about the Constitution, because Americans do really feel very strongly about the Constitution and protecting their rights under the Constitution, and any suggestion that it could be changed, I mean, I think as the professor was saying there, very unlikely to happen quickly, but would go against something that is deeply, deeply American, and that is kind of what Trump appeals to. So it's at odds, really, a little bit with that message that he's giving.
And here's a question. Maybe in the next 4 years, a powerful Democrat will emerge. I mean, we don't ever talk about...
you never know.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it, that American politics seems to resort in, well, there's this guy, Donald Trump, and there's this guy, J.D. Vance. We never mention Democrats because there's no one there. Maybe in the next couple of years, someone will rise to the surface.
Hey, you never know. Liberation Day approaches on Wednesday, the day the US imposes 25% tariffs. Will it be a disaster for the British economy, and how should we respond?
I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. You know, we have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we do. Most importantly, they love the job we do.
Are you deadline?
Well, there'll be a deal with TikTok. I'm working. The automakers are going to make a lot of money, the American automakers, or international automakers, if you're talking about they're going to build in the United States. The people that are going to make money are people that manufacture cars in the United States. Outside of the United States, that's going to be up to them. I don't care too much about that.